Thank you, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And thanks for joining this session, which is on cost of AI. And we'll talk about business use cases and cost savings and how we can maximize revenue as well by use of AI. And it's not just Gen AI, so we'll be looking at other aspects of AI as well across the board. And may I just hand it over to Santosh just for a quick introduction as well. Go ahead, please.
Thanks a lot, Nishant, and great to be here. Just to kind of give a little bit of introduction, at least you should know whom you guys are talking to, me and Nishant. Name is Santosh Tiwari. I'm a partner into EY-Parthenon, looking after primarily into the mergers and acquisitions from a technology lens. Being there in the industry for the last 25 years and currently witnessing some of the very exciting things happening into the AI. Happy to be here to talk about it. Nishant?
Great. Thank you, Santosh. And this is Nishant Kinra here. I'm part of EY-Parthenon as well. I'm a director here in the transaction strategy and execution. We all work across in the domain of strategy and transactions, working with private equity firms, working with corporates who are interested in investing in technology firms. And we are here to help them and support them go through that journey. So maybe if we just jump on to what we are going to cover today as part of the session. So what we'll delve through is just a very short piece of introduction into AI and Gen AI. What do we see Gen AI doing for us across the different industries that we see in the market? Then we'll talk about the cost of Gen AI. How do you really calculate the cost? What all components go in as part of the cost of Gen AI? Then we'll talk about cost savings with Gen AI, which is one of the benefits of Gen AI. Then we'll talk about maximization of revenue with various use cases as well. And then the role of Gen AI with a few business cases and what Gen AI has to offer at the end of the day. And maybe if I may ask, the chat should be open for all of you. So please go ahead and post your questions. We'll take up at the end, maybe in the last 10 minutes or so. I'll just introduce this piece and maybe this is one of the most important concepts these days. It's been 2 years. Gen AI has taken the world for a toss, I would say. Gen AI has been in the market for about 8 years, if not more than that, in the current form of what we know. But it has become a buzzword since ChatGPT came into place. So I guess in 2021, when ChatGPT was introduced, we were not very privy of the word Gen AI or generative AI. And this is what now AI actually means to us. But that's not the case. AI is not equal to only Gen AI. That is a very big concept that we wanted all of you to take back. That when we talk AI, it's not just Gen AI. There are various other factors, various other aspects and versions of AI, which are across the board. Technologists are using them, experts are using them across industries. We are all using them as well when we're talking to our Siri or Google Assistants and everybody. They're not all Gen AI. There are various facets of AI. Maybe, Santosh, what are your thoughts on this? I think this is a very big buzzword these days, isn't it?
I think, Nishant, it is. And what is important to understand in this is that whatever discussions which we are going to have across into that one, understanding this factor becomes extremely critical. I think leaving aside the technical differences of AI versus Gen AI into that one, I think what Gen AI did was effectively to bring AI to the masses. Right? AI has been there for ages, at least for the last 20 to 30 years in different forms of the technology, in the terms of the machine learning, in terms of other analytics databases. You're talking about something sitting under a white umbrella. However, what basically revolutionized the entire thing is when the people who are not really the technology people found a way to interact with AI in a way which essentially changed their lives completely. And I think that is where the differentiation starts creating, that AI is still there, but what exactly is creating this whole chain of events, this whole discussion, this webinar itself into that one, is this increased interest in the Gen AI and how exactly that is happening. I think what we are going to cover into the rest of the slides, the context of what we're talking about AI or we're talking about Gen AI, that context becomes extremely important to get into that. In fact, the next 3 points, and Nishant, please feel free to jump in any point of time, but there is one part which I want to cover into that one as well. This idea about what exactly is Gen AI, right? And I still like we work with quite a lot of clients, and this question comes again and again, right? What's the difference, right? Are they the same into that? And if I would like to go into a very kind of a very layperson language to understand this part, right? Having a lot of data and understanding insights from that data is one thing, and utilizing that data to create new content is another thing. And that's where the whole generative AI makes a difference into that one. And what we are seeing into that one is the use cases, applications, right? Which is effectively breaking quite a lot of business models, quite a lot of operation techniques and in the details of it. Nishant, in fact, love to hear your thoughts on the point number 3 in the terms of how exactly the Gen AI has extended from there.
Sure. Let me just cover these 3 quickly. So what is Gen AI? So Gen AI, as the term itself says, generative AI. So what does it mean? It's focusing on creating content, and that content could be images, text, music, anything. So that is generative AI's basic concept. But what's the second one? How does it do it? It does by learning from the training data. It's all bases that training data that is fed into the models, which is generating that content. And this makes or breaks the model that you're feeding in. And that's where the ethics and the other pieces also come into play. What is the data that you're feeding it with? And that's how good it would be, as good the data is. And the last one, what do you make out of that? How do you analyze different kinds of data? And this is where Gen AI can help us, whether it's financial data, whether it's customer transactions data, whether it's software code data, whether it's market data forecasting, and there are many other use cases as well. So what do you make of generative AI applications is the most important piece. So the what of Gen AI, how or what is it creating, the how is the training data, and why would you use it? You would use it because it can do magic to the data, which is humanly maybe not possible. And that's where we also talk about, if it is so good, what is the cost of AI? But a very interesting fact we have come across is 68% of the CEOs agree that uncertainty around Gen AI, which includes the cost, is making it the most challenging piece. I think your thoughts, Santosh, there, because you speak with many CEOs and CTOs on a daily basis.
No, certainly, Nishant. I think the idea in here is that when we started utilizing the Gen AI in the starting days, right, you will see quite a number of Facebook posts and the other areas where you see people generating graphics, people generating kind of content into that one, which was, for want of a better word, considered as fun activities. When we start taking the fun activities to the business uses of Gen AI, right, the first question which you hit into that one is, how much am I going to spend to get this thing into the play? And if I spend that much amount, is this going to add anything to my efficiency, or is going to add anything to my advantages? Now, there's a big part of that which talks about the whole use cases, and we will get into the details of it. But for any business owner to use AI, the first thing which hits them to essentially gets the detail out is how much I need to spend. And that is the key areas. People understand. In fact, one of the common views which we get across when we are talking to the CEOs is, yes, I think it is interesting. I think I can do quite a lot. But how much does it cost? And is it really going to make a material change into my revenue? So this is a part which forms the basis of today's webinar, actually. And I guess we are going to make quite a lot of touch points into that as we go forward.
No, absolutely. I think that's very spot on what you've just said. But what everyone doesn't understand is, and this is something Santosh and I have in our I would say in our personalities. Let's make things as simple as possible, right? So this is the simplicity of what we want to put forward. Cost of AI is nothing but cost of data plus cost of compute plus cost of people. Just have this formula ready in your mind, and you can derive to any cost that you would require. Of course, there are complexities underneath. If it is a custom model versus if it is a cost model, if you're acquiring it from a solution, or if you're building it in-house, there would be different nuances to it. But this is the basic model you just have to be aware of. AI equals to data plus compute plus people. And it's not just for cost. It could be any other thing. The performance of AI is also data plus compute plus people. How good is your data? How good is your compute? How good are your people? So it applies, the simple formula applies to all the colors of how AI needs to be implemented. And then there are various depths to it. And maybe Santosh, you can touch upon a few technicalities here. There are various depths to it as well.
No, I will add one more thing before we get into the details. For want of a better things which we have gone into is the monetary value of the cost. But what I would encourage everybody to also look at is don't see the cost only in the data terms. Right? Cost is also sometimes which is going to be required by the AI implementation, but not necessarily can be counted purely in the terms of the dollar terms. Right? The translation into the way you works, how exactly people were working before, how exactly they're working now, what are they changing into that one, all of that thing needs to come into the play part of it, right? Data, if you are an AI producer versus if you are the AI user into that one, compute, are you building it, are you renting it? We will touch upon some of the topics into that one, and most important of all is the people. It's a very, very wider set of the people in the terms of what exactly is the training and the changes required to your existing set of the people to make those changes into that one. Nishant, let's take it to the next slide. I think some of the things, let's bring it to the life part of it. Now, the first thing, let's kind of start with a very, very basic bricks and mortar of that one. Infrastructure. Yes, it is a computing technology. It will require infrastructure in the computing resource, right? And keeping it simple, you do require money to be invested on that hardware if you are trying to go to build. One caution in here, all of the cost which you're looking into that one depends upon your modes of implementations, and there could be multiple modes of implementations. Are you trying to rent the capacity from somewhere? Are you trying to build it yourself? There are pros and cons across into the capacity into that one. And that's where is the hidden implication of this entire cost. Your cost will depend upon how exactly you are going to go about implementing this activity. So what you are seeing here is the cost is give you an estimate, give you a help in the terms of defining where exactly is my baseline, where exactly it's coming from that. The second one, right? As Nishant also highlighted in the starting, data, right? You are building a model, you are an AI model producer into that one. Where are you going to train your system from? Is this data going to come from you? Is this data you can purchase in there? Are you going to generate something synthetic, a fake data to train into that one? That data acquisition itself is the cost which comes into the play. Now that is where lies the underlying things into that one. One is acquiring the data, acquiring the permissions of that data. Who owns that data anyway? What exactly is your compliance and other things which comes into that one? All of that factor fits into the data acquisition. So data acquisition is not as simple as go buy the data. It's whatever that comes with the data part of it. Licensing and subscription, I know, Nishant, you can speak much more about this than me. So over to you on 03.
Sure. Just before I go on licensing, I think for data, you mentioned a very good point, the ownership of data, and that is a very essential part as well. So when it comes to cost, it's not the cost that you pay for acquisition and sanitization and processing of the data. It's actually, if you were to use someone else's model, if you were to use someone else's solution, it was your data running on top of it. You have to ask yourself that question if you own that company, who does that data belong to? It was your data, but being processed on an open source model. Now that data is going out in the market. That is a very big cost that you're paying to use that model. And that needs to be accounted for as well when you are looking at the totality. And it might not be accountable as well because that is sensitive data of your customers. That could be the case as well. So I think that's very important when you're looking at data acquisition and data processing. But now jumping onto licensing and subscription. So Santosh clearly mentioned when you're building your own infrastructure, when you're building a custom model, you need to have a lot of infrastructure and compute power. We've given a few examples of numbers as well. So it could be a $24 per hour for a good GPU. It could be a $50,000 system that you will have as an edge compute server sitting under your table. But what if you don't want to build all that? What if you just want to use what is available and build by someone else? So you can see an example, 3 cents for 1,000 tokens of GPT-4. 1,000 tokens is nothing but, I would say, a value of AI currency that is leveraged whenever you are processing any information or analyzing or procuring any information from any AI model. So that is called in tokens. That currency of use of AI models is called tokens. And for each 1,000 tokens is the cost of, in at least for GPT-4, it's about 3 cents. And this number of tokens used, you might think 1,000 tokens is a lot, but the number of tokens used goes in millions and billions, and you don't even get to know when it reaches that. So every question, every time you are prompting the model, you are giving that money away as part of a subscription cost, as part of the fee as well. Jumping on to the next one. So it's not just what you would require as part of subscription fee. You would require a team. You would require to maintain it as well. You would require to develop anything on top of it. So I was just working with a startup recently, and they had built, they are a sports company, and they had built a solution for a racquetball sport. What they have done is they have created their edge servers, edge compute servers, and they carry it at every site. And they are able to process that information instantaneously by developing on top of an open source existing model. They've developed their own algorithm, and that took them about, I would say, about 6 months or so, and that costed them about 300K. So what you see on the screen is the lowest estimate of building anything, which is about 400 hours of development, plus a 20K yearly maintenance as well. This is the micro setup that we're talking about. It can jump hundreds of times. Of course, ChatGPT, you guys must have been hearing about OpenAI. Mr. Altman says he's happy to burn $10 billion every year for Gen AI to go to the next level. So that is the burn of money that is possible or probable when it comes to use of AI. Just the last one, which is the others like inferencing and tuning. This is very specific to core technology technologists. Whenever you're building your custom models, you need to tune them. It's not just the data that you put in, it's the neural models that you've created different layers of, and they need to be augmented. They need to be again and again calibrated based on the training data that you keep feeding it. So that's another cost which is not very, I would say, accountable at this point in time for the illustratives that we're talking about. Anything else that you want to add here, Santosh?
Yeah, Nishant, I will add one more thing to this. If you are building a business case for a development of Gen AI, either for your own company or your clients, I think one of the factors to keep into account that this is a technology which seems to be in hurry to grow, right? Even today, if you think about it, I think in the last week, the new ChatGPT versions which has been launched have started building up the capabilities of the imaging. You can talk to it, you can listen from it. This capability is changing on a daily basis. So whatever you're building, right? Technology was always like that. Technology used to evolve pretty fast. This multiply that speed by over 10 times into that. And at the same point of time, what makes the business case in here a little bit more complex to build is the amount of the regulation and everything which is still outstanding. Given the areas it touches, given the areas of the data acquisitions, there are quite a number of places where such regulations don't exist as of now. And if you are making a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year, 10-year plan, all of those factors need to be taken into account. That if something like this happens and a change happens into that one, how exactly it is going to affect my cost setup into that one. And it's extremely difficult to plan for something which is not in there, but taking that into the consideration that this technology and your setup may go through significant changes into that one, that awareness can help a lot into that. So that is a factor to take into account, that what you are looking at here is a 50,000 feet view. We do quite a lot of these things with our customers where we take it down to a 10,000, 5,000 view into that one. But the big picture starts from this skeleton elements, and then it needs to be developed very much similar to your context to keep these factors into account as well. Nishant, let's go to the next one.
Absolutely. So what we know now is we know what Gen AI is. We know what it can do. We know what is the cost of Gen AI, how it is calculated, what are the different components to it. But what do we do out of Gen AI? What is the ROI for us? Again, trying to keep it very simple. How do you turn AI/Gen AI into a return on investment? So there are two things it can do for you. It can maximize savings, plus it can maximize revenue. So that always, whenever you're looking at Gen AI and AI, all the use cases that we are looking at, let's look at them with two lenses: how it can improve my productivity and improve my savings, or how it can induce more to my revenue, create new business models, or support the existing models to have more revenue. Anything to add here?
No, certainly, I think just like I don't think this has been a constant source of debate, but a little bit easier, a little bit better, right? Maybe a lot bit better. Yeah, I wish. Hello, can you hear me still?
Yes, Santosh, your network was a little haywire, so go ahead, please.
Yeah, I hope I had an AI to take care of that one, but just to come in there. But the idea here is to also get into the next level details about, is AI triggering down the revenue streams which were not existing before, just by the nature of Gen AI to bring that activity also in. That's an important factor to also consider. As we go to the next slide, we will cover some of them also. Please go ahead, Nishant.
Perfect. So let's start with, how do you maximize cost savings with Gen AI? That's one of the key aspects of getting ROI of your Gen AI pieces. So you see four most important pieces. Of course, first one is you reduce your operational costs through AI-led automation. Automation of repetitive tasks, which cannot be automated by the traditional, and it's very funny to say RPA as traditional, but that's how the world works in technology. How you can leverage Gen AI and AI to improve the repetitive or automate the repetitive tasks which were not earlier able to be done by RPA. That's one of the main cases which is happening right now globally. One of the most easiest example is service management. Every smallest or the biggest companies have now included a chatbot, and that chatbot is already helping the service management, reducing the call overloads, reduces people efforts in supporting the customers already. So that is already happening as we speak. The other one is long-term talent optimization as well. So a symbiotic relationship between AI can help the proficiency of the workers. And I'll give you an example of our own industry. So there are a few examples that is happening in the world of due diligence as well. How can AI help deliver due diligence services even better than what we as consultants do on a daily basis? So we as consultants are being augmented by AI products to deliver better value by analyzing data which we were not able to do earlier. So there is 5 years of data which has millions of lines of information, and all of that data needs to be crunched and provided a view upon. That can be done in hours of time rather than human intervention getting into play. And that is analyzed with new content being created with subjective and pattern based analysis as well. So that's a very important piece, and helping the talent become better. Last one, of course, is similar to what we were talking about, but it's more towards generating new content. So this is very key to the media industry, the entertainment industry, and even in the industry that those are very traditional as well when it comes to creating management reports, etc. in the MIS function. How do you create new images, new text, new media, draft new reports, etc. Again, augmenting the workers. And the last but not the least, the workflow, the end-to-end workflow. How do you take away the steps from any workflow that is happening, for example, in the telco industry? If there is maintenance of network solutions that needs to happen, the network lines which are spread out, there is a maintenance activity which continuously happens, which is in a traditional case done by manual efforts. If that is to be monitored very frequently or at a proactive level, that can be done via AI as well. And that is already happening with AI ops, already brings into play with predictive maintenance applied. I'll just pause there. Santosh, if you want to add something there.
Yes, Nishant, I think one part which I want to go, because this is one question which we get quite a lot, right? In fact, most of my discussions, one point which comes again and again is, does this mean people are going to lose their jobs, right? What I want to touch upon that is the word on talent optimization. The way our impression works at the moment is people will get possibly to do different things. People will get to work differently into that one. This is not about people being made redundant into that. The diligence example which Nishant took into that one, right? At this moment, the limitations which allow you to do is to look at the limited set of the data, look at the what possible scenarios can come into that, right? The capability which AI adds to the people working on the diligence is making their scope bigger, wider, and covering a lot of ground in a very short amount of the time to come with very enriched analysis, right? So essentially what we have seen is a redirection of the capabilities to a slightly but more higher plane, where effectively all of those inputs are now available to the people to work on it better. And that is what an important differentiation to be made. Gen AI is not about replacing, though the common impression which comes out is this. Gen AI is about making the efficiency a little bit better. It's about doing a little bit more, doing a little bit more efficient, more correct, more accurate analysis into that. And that's where this entire thing needs to be seen into that. That cost savings is driving towards that rather than finishing off that work which you're doing right now. And that needs to be taken into account as you go towards building the case of putting up the Gen AI into the play.
And I'll just complement that with another example. So maybe 35, 40 years ago, when internet was just a buzzword in the market, and it was barely a buzzword, it was still in play. And from 91 onwards, something actually started to happen for internet. Nobody knew what internet could do in 1991, right? What happened later on? Now internet is what we work on. It's not a new thing. It's not something that has replaced people. Rather, it has created new opportunities. It has created social media, for example. It has created new jobs. It has created new business models. That's what AI is. Slowly, we'll understand AI would be part of everything that we do. It would not be something different that we have to add in our work play every day. It will be integrated so well in our everyday work and life, and that we'll not get to know that we're using AI. For example, that we don't understand now when we are using internet, because that's a given thing. So AI would be a given thing as well. And rightly said, Santosh, I think it's not to replace people, it's to enable people even further. And yes, people would have to learn and unlearn a few things. But I think that's part of the change we have to go through every few years. That's part of technology. But the other aspect of ROI is revenue as well. And revenue is not as straightforward. As again, I was mentioning earlier, internet in itself did not create revenue. It was the application of internet which created new revenue opportunities. Like YouTube created new opportunities, social media created new opportunities. So how would Gen AI actually create new opportunities? The initial view of Gen AI would be it will be able to maximize revenue rather than create net new revenue. When I say maximize revenue, I'll give an example like in the education work stream, in the EdTech space, when there are pupils and students who go into a student life journey, and we have a big EdTech firm who has, for example, 500,000 students as part of that journey. How will without AI be able to create personalized journey for each one of them? It was never possible earlier. But what AI has enabled is create a new business model, or create that new work stream or new business work stream that you can now provide a better customer experience with a personalized education journey for each pupil, and that will enable their learning journey even further, which was not possible earlier. So it's an additional, I would say, feature to an already existing traditional education industry. And there are various other examples as well. Santosh, if you have any, maybe please go ahead.
I think for me, the most interesting one is the healthcare part of it, right? What we had seen into the last few years is quite a number of variables coming into the healthcare industry, which can provide a massive amount of the data which you can generate by your daily day-to-day actions, right? Now, all of this data for quite some point of time was just available, right? You can look at this data, and I've seen multiple of the places where this devices became the choices of the people who like technology, but it generates so much data that you are not even making sense of it. And I think that's where we are seeing now the AI entering the play, that let me translate this data into something which you understand, and then enters the Gen AI part of it, what exactly you should do about it, right? In consulting, we have the biggest problem which we deal with the world is, so what, right? Gen AI is what exactly coming in to create that so what of that data, right? Yes, I didn't sleep for very well in last 3 nights into that one. So what should I do, right? The idea to look at that insight and generate a plan for you, and just laying it out in a very simple terms, going in there and saying, okay, fine, my sleep was not good. Can you give me an idea about what should be my sleep pattern? And not depending upon a subscription, but this is something which is particular to your data, particular to your situation, coming from your devices, helping you on a step-by-step basis. And this is something which kind of excites me a lot. Very similar to that, getting into the hospitality business, getting into the entertainment side of it. Each places where we are getting into, in fact, some of the cases we were listening about some time before about the automotive side of it, right? There is a massive work which is getting kicked off in the terms of R&D enablement for the automotive, right? Better designs, right? All the factors which you're thinking about how to play into that. This is where the use cases, if you ask me, have started coming up, and we have not even touched the surface of it as yet. As this capabilities keep on increasing, what you'll be seeing into is next year or so, this will go much to the depth where you start realizing the new models coming into that one, the capabilities coming into that one. And that is the point when all of these capabilities will start getting into those pricing models and the business models, right? And that is what makes it so exciting to get on the revenue side of it.
Absolutely. And I think just to touch upon the productivity improvement as well, and productivity improvement has its legs in two boats. Yes, it can reduce cost, but the other side of the productivity is it can increase your production potential, which will induce higher revenue. So of course, I speak with a lot of media companies day in and day out, and the clear answer coming from them, or a clear theme coming from them, is Gen AI has boosted what they were able to produce on a daily or hourly basis. So I was speaking with an ad agency very recently, and they were working with one of the leading automotive companies in India, and they were to create a very global level advertisement campaign for them. 80% of the content that was created, 80% of the content which was I would say refined and developed, as in the posters, as in the digital advertisements, as in the graphics that was created, the background images, the background videos of the models standing, the cars in the open, which is a destination not existent in the world. It was utopia, which was never feasible before. All of that was being created and done by Gen AI. And it was something that increased their productivity by multiple fold. There's not a number that they were able to share, but it has increased their productivity by multiple fold. And that's another way of seeing how you can maximize revenue. I was speaking to a brewery firm as well very recently, and they are thinking of how Gen AI will help them produce better. I wouldn't say produce more, but how to produce better. So you would put a camera in that brewery, and that camera would give you a feed which is so accurate that it can tell you the best brew would happen in the next so many hours. And you should stop the brewing process after so many hours and try to take it to the next step. It helps them improve their procurement process. It helps them improve their operational process. It helps them have better brews as well, more accurate every time. So there are various use cases which in turn somehow induce better revenue. Just to touch upon more of a quality. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Michelle, I'll just add one thing. There is an underlying technology into this one, and just to make it clear, I'm sure there are people who are joining. They have got very good expertise on the AI side already, but just to kind of touch upon that, not to miss that topic. Quite a lot of places where we hear when we start talking to the people who are coming into the new is that they still see Gen AI as a textual question answer interface, right? What I would encourage everybody to start thinking about is a multimodal AI. Multimodal Gen AI is now talking about videos, now talking about sounds, now talking about pictures into that one. And it's not stopping there, right? Sensing your environment, getting a temperature reading, and then taking a call on the basis of that. The whole idea of the multimodal is practically anything and everything which can be used as an input. If it is not available there, it is going towards that. So the questions which we were listening about sometime before about the brewing process into that one, right? Imagine inputs coming from the color of the picture, the look of the brew, the time of the brew, the smell of the brew, whatever which can get into that to enable that model to take a decision and put this part. Start thinking about that, and then you can see that where exactly it can take you. It just opens up a huge amount of space in the terms of defining the pricing and the business models into it. Go on, Nishant.
I think it's a good time for everybody who's on the call to maybe put something on the comments as well. Which other new business models can you think of, or you're aware of, or you're already working on? Just to have a good discussion later on in the last 15 minutes when we have the Q&A session. So this was about the cost savings, and we've also talked about maximizing revenue, but how do you then combine it all together? So what you see on the left is, and this is something we as consultants do for a living, right? 2x2 matrices. So when we look at 2x2 of how do you put AI and the use cases of AI across cost savings and revenue generation and internal versus external factors. So internal use cases and external use cases, improving cost savings and revenue generation. So this is the 2x2 matrix which you see on the left. And what you see as circles there are finance sector Gen AI use cases by function. So these are different functions. So for example, in technology, HR, people, finance, service and operations, customer and growth, etc. There are various, these are various functions, and within each function, there are multiple use cases that are included to make that size of the circle. So the most number of use cases we see are in servicing and operations, which mostly lies in the internal side, which mostly is for cost saving at this point in time. That is the biggest part. So at this point in time, Gen AI is mostly leveraged to improve cost saving aspects. We are not suggesting it will not create new revenue, and this is an open question for you all. Can Gen AI by itself create net new revenue? Happy to get an answer from you guys and with some examples as well. But at this point in time, with the current maturity, which is actually going very strongly, exponentially increasing every month, I would say. But at this point in time, it's still leveraged for mostly cost savings. And we mostly see that happening in service and operations. There's a lot happening in customer and growth, but this is mostly driven by chatbots that we see in the market, which are inducing better customer experience, leading to better customer retention, reducing customer churn. So in turn, trying to maximize revenue, but not essentially a net new revenue in the finance sector per se. So that's what it's showing on the left. What you see on the right-hand side is a few use cases still that we wanted to put forward. So content and advertising offerings, conversational experience layer. This induces higher engagement. This increases the time of use as well. So this in turn would suggest some net new revenue happening. And these numbers are of course illustrative for a particular industry that we are talking about. But then it comes to acquisition and retention as well. You're able to automate digital sales. You're able to increase organic marketing. Your throughput of auto generation of content increases as well, which increases your conversion, which increases or shifts your paid to organic marketing as well. So there are various cases which are built, which can induce revenue. But is it essentially net new? I believe at this point in time for finance, it's still more of maximizing revenue rather than net new revenue. There are applications where net new revenue does exist, but for finance as a sector, we still believe, or I still believe, that it's more of maximizing revenue. Open to your thoughts. Then there are sales efficiencies, engineering efficiencies, operational use cases, and service use cases as well, which you can read through it, that induces more cost savings. And this forms your total ROI as part of the use of Gen AI within your organization. Santosh, anything to add here, please?
Not a lot, Nishant. I think we have covered quite a lot, and this goes into the level of details which possibly the time today will not permit. But happy to take anybody's questions and comments on this or any specific areas which they want us to respond to, and we can get into the details of it.
Okay. So after we see that Gen AI cost is the most important piece, we see it leads to cost savings. We understand it leads to maximizing revenue as well. We understood how to do the return on investment of Gen AI and AI as well. But what is the role of Gen AI? What do we actually see? What's the bottom line? What's the conclusion? Conclusion are very specific, what we have already talked about, but let's just conclude it with a few figures here. What we see is Gen AI is expected to add $400 billion in revenue and savings in the retail industry. So it's happening in retail industry. That is somewhere it's booming a lot. It's led by the various use cases that we've just talked about. Of course, happy to answer any questions on this, but this is an industry where it's happening a lot. The cost savings aspects, the maximizing of revenue, the customer retention, the customer experience improvement, the sales increase, all of that is happening quite strongly within this industry. Within the fashion and apparel industry as well, as we were talking about media a little while ago, we look at $275 billion market in operating profits by Gen AI alone. Again, led by use of Gen AI, and this just reminds me of another use case. We all see portfolios of apparel companies coming through. At least 10 years ago, they used to come in by post as well. We used to have big magazines coming through. All of that, one single magazine, the shoot, the models, the cameraman, everything, all of that takes a lot of money and effort to do. If Gen AI was to be leveraged to do all that, that one single portfolio will not take more than a couple of weeks to get generated, without travel, without use of models, just with virtual models and virtual apparels as well, and it can all be done. That's where we see the market is trending. Of course, it's too far-fetched, but that's the whole idea about this discussion. Last but not the least, increasing productivity by 2% of annual revenues in retail and CPG. Again, retail and CPG tends to be the biggest talk of the town. We see there is increase in productivity by 2%, which might look small, but this is a big number or a big jump in this industry if you were to take it all together for an industry this wide. I'll just pause there, and Santosh, I know we have to maybe pause in the next 3 minutes for any questions and take them up, but anything from you?
No, this is fine. In fact, one question is there, which Bhavisha asking for that question, and that's one of my kind of interest areas. The image recognition algorithms used currently in the agriculture part of it. Actually, answering this thing is fun for me because it essentially takes into not only the AI, but how exactly AI needs to interact with some of the other technologies which are happening in parallel, right? This image recognition goes at both macro and the micro levels. Within EY, we have done few programs on this as well, where combining the AI with the satellite tech industries into that, a large parts of the pictures are then converted into understanding what is an agricultural land, what is a bad land, what exactly can be utilized, what can't be utilized into that one. From that use case, right down taking to the micro levels, where looking at the pictures of the plants, of the crops into that and identifying how good or how much they are suffering from any kind of a bugs, diseases and the things, and then making a decision to do any kind of a recovery actions on top of that. So the spectrum of the image recognition, which goes towards each tree, crop, fruit, whatever is produced into that one, both at a very, very micro level and the macro level, this is very much an area which is in raise right now. And the part which I was trying to get into that was how exactly a technology like AI, combine it with satellite imagery, combine it with, in future, we might do another session on that one, with something like a quantum computing, with something like a blockchain into that one, can produce some very dramatic use cases which can be utilized into that one. I hope we were able to answer that thing without confusing too many people into that. Right, I think guys, we have come down pretty much to the end of the presentation we wanted to keep, and we are into the final 10 minutes. If we had any other questions, yeah, Kaushik has one question to that one. That's an interesting one. Will Gen AI in patient diagnosis will be able to predict disease patterns in advance and monitor for early treatment? Kaushik, this is already happening. This is already happening. In fact, this activity, I think, let me just take you through a bit of a Gen AI versus AI before. The attempt to this use case was started quite some time back from the days of Watson, which was the earlier AI platform into that one, when there was attempts to essentially get all of this data together and try to find the diagnostics of this and what the pattern into that one. Gen AI is just supercharging that because of the computing capability which is available today into this one. So we are aware that in certain cases, in certain experimentations around the world, this is very much in the flow into that one. It still needs to mature quite a lot, but that activity is very much a direction in which Gen AI is taking into that. On Pallavi's question, do you want to pick up this one, Nishant?
Sure. So the question is, how can organization gauge AI development costs, measure ROI, and ensure profitability in short span of time? I think that's a very complicated question, to be honest. So in a short span of time, I don't think anything would be possible here. I'll be very upfront. It's about, and let me take a step back and apply the chaos to structure theory here. And I'll give an example of a previous technology which came into play so that you can understand this better. Before SAP was even there within the systems that we see right now globally, everyone was using their own systems. We were building their own, they were all building their own ERPs, and there was no structure there. And everyone thought, okay, let's use that technology, let's do that. And all the different modules were different applications, and they were all trying to merge them together, somehow try to work it together. What happened later on? It all turned out that it could be integrated, and I would say the experts in the industry were able to support the organization to incorporate that better than what was happening earlier. The same thing is happening with AI as well. Because it came as a buzzword, it was a buzz thing and still is. All the organizations right now, and I would of course give some exceptions to some good ones there, but most of the organizations right now are trying to incorporate AI in every nook and corner that they can think of. But is that the right approach? Because to maximize profit, to maximize the ROI, you have to have a structure to that chaos as well. So right now we are in a chaos. We are leveraging AI however we can. We are putting solutions wherever possible. Let's use that assistant. Let's use that contract analyzer. Let's use that document analyzer. Let's put that image recognition tool. Let's augment my finance team. Let's improve my service management. So we are doing it all across the board, but there's no structure to it right now. And that's where it will come into play in the next 6 months. And that's something that, of course, my opinion is that within the next 6 months, most of the organizations would accept the fact that we have to bring structure to the chaos of AI, which we have incorporated quite a lot. There's a lot of investment that has gone into AI, but we've not put that, I would say we've not funneled that as of now, and it's not possible to do that in a short span of time. That was a long answer to a short question there, sorry.
Yeah, let me give a consultant's answer to that one, another perspective. I think the shortest way to do that would be, at this moment, go for a low-hanging fruit. I think that one of the parts which we highlighted before that one was AI is a technology which seems to be in a hurry to go somewhere where we don't know. It is also already changing into that. Why you are seeing things like document summarizer into that one? Because they help the business case. Take small examples, right, which can give you immediate returns and then build on top of it. Whatever our experience says into the area is that there is very few places where AI is going for a big bang approach. But it is more going in the part of set it up small, keep building step by step, brick by brick on the capabilities. And that's where you can see some kind of a profitability into the short span of the time, right? Not the long business cases, but the smaller one. Just in the interest of the time, I'll take to some other cases also. Aneep has a very interesting case because there's something which we are involved into a number of places. The biggest hurdles, I think the first biggest hurdle we have seen is the change into the working practices and the mindset of the people. Quite a lot of people are still not very comfortable with the chat-based AI assistants, right? And the traditional pieces of work. This requires a little bit of a change management, the training of the people, and showing the benefits to the people into the use cases which they are too comfortable with. So the idea here is not to build the chat-based AI assistants in isolation, but having a very good exercise with each of the users to understand what use cases they are going after, and then establish a very good change management program to gently guide them towards using it. Keep in mind what you are changing here is the way of their working. And the good old change management practices will need to be put on pretty much the steroids here to make sure that adaptation happens. This has nothing to do with AI. This is the adaptation part which we have seen into that one. Second part is in the terms of the data and the content. You talked about 3 hurdles into this. So first is the change management. Second thing is how intelligent is the chat-based AI assistant. You need to look at what exactly it has been trained on, the confidentiality of the data, the access which it has to the data, while maintaining the risk management profile of the organization itself. That's the second part of it. And the fourth part is making sure that you protect against yourself against something called hallucinations, where AI gets it wrong. Yes, AI can get it wrong. So if you look at these 3 things, because one wrong answer to a user can damage the credibility and the confidence of the user quite heavily, and they will never come back to use it again. If you manage these 3 things together, this can be easily handled. Nishant, sorry for stopping with that.
No, I was just saying, so just to give a very quick answer to that question, Aneep, just remember that formula I had on the screen earlier. Data plus people plus compute. Those are essentially, of course, there are various buckets to it, but those will essentially be the hurdles as well in any AI model. It will affect your performance, it will affect your cost, it will affect your delivery, it will affect how you are structuring it. That formula applies to every dimension that you want to analyze an AI model on or an AI solution on. So if the data is not correct, it won't work well. If your compute is not well enough, it will not be optimized. If your people are not good enough, you'll not have a good solution. So that's a short answer. Maybe the next one from Nishi. Yeah,
Nishi,
go ahead.
Go on, Nishant. Okay.
How easily can GenAI solutions scale with the growth of business? Has this been challenging based on your experience? Again, going to those 3 aspects again. And again, taking with an example, the sports company that I was talking to you about, the biggest challenge for that sports company that I'm talking about is their USP was that their results come in microseconds. We're not talking about milliseconds here. They come in microseconds, and they were able to achieve it because if the processing if the event is happening in this room right now, their processing or compute power was sitting under this table, and that is not scalable. So that compute is very important. How do you get your compute from? And if you are not promising the sky to everybody, then it works. But if you're promising some results which might not be feasible from a cloud solution, that has to be taken into account. That is the biggest hurdle when it comes to scaling of solutions.
Taking to the next one, Ashima, the question about if they have not started their AI journey, how to get, no, it's not too late. We won't say that it is a too late part of it, but what exactly needs to be done is before you get into that place, I think there is a big activity required in the terms of the whole readiness assessment. right? Are you ready for AI in a very simple terms? And in here, number of things comes into that one. What kind of data you handle, right? Do you have the buy-in for your executive team to essentially go after that? This is not something which you do for a software implementation for 3 months and close it. This is something which will change the direction of your company, the way of your working, the way you recruit, the way you use your people, the way you plan your finances. AI will not be limited to just a CIO's responsibilities or a CTO's responsibility. It will become the organizational lifeblood at some point of time. So what the best practices in here is get the buy-in, plan it properly, prepare a roadmap, and that roadmap should be capable of having an agile changes as it grows, as the technology changes into that one. This is not a 100-meter run. This is a marathon, and it needs to be planned into certain way into that part, right? Quite a number of organizations whom we are working with, these are the organizations who are there into the market for last 30, 40, 50, and one case is around 100 years old, right? They know their business. And what they are seeing at the moment is their business is changing. And for them, this is not going to happen in the next couple of days or couple of months or couple of years even, right? They are building up their long-term plans in the terms of how this transformation will happen. And they know that this transformation is not going to be limited to just their IT department. It's going to encompass everything. And that is the best practices in the way to go about that you do understand how exactly is the best way to proceed. Whenever you are talking to your clients, whenever you're trying to plan your business, think long term with the small milestones which can give you the advantage of that one. That's the simplest way which we can sum it up at the moment.
I think we are on top of the hour. Just to add another lens to what Santosh has just said. So if from a transactional lens, because that's something we do day in and day out, the private equity firms, the investor firms, the conglomerates which are acquiring the smaller startups which are AI enabled, they are or they should already be doing the AI capability due diligence, because that's something very important to understand whether that organization would be able to scale with the AI that they are promising. And that applies not just to the investors, but to the enterprises themselves as well. They should be able to assess their own AI readiness and see how to grow within the AI realm as soon as possible. Of course, it's not late. As I was saying earlier, we are in the chaos phase, and the structure phase is bound to come soon, and only then we'll come to the mature phase. So we still have time, but yes, it does run out. That's what time does. But yeah, that's about it. I think we are on top of the hour. If no other questions.
Thanks a lot, guys. Really, thank you very much for your time into this one. Really interested to talk about that. Please send us your feedback into this, and we'll be happy to see where exactly we can take this forward. Thank you.